Lance Christensen wants your vote for Superintendent of Public Instruction. I'm Tim Thompson. This is Our Watch.
Fake news, fake woke, distract and divide. You're either right or you're left, or you're black or you're white. Big tech don't need a microchip to hack in your life, because the phone inside your pocket is a tracking device.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Our Watch with Tim Thompson. I'm Pastor Tim. Glad to be with you today, and I've got a special guest with us. Lance Christensen is here with us. Lance is running for Superintendent of Public Instruction here in the state of California, and those of you that got my voter guide, you know he is the man that I recommended you vote for. So, Lance, so glad to have you here on the program today.
I'm glad to be with you, Pastor Tim.
Yeah, we're glad to have you running for this position. Like I said, Superintendent of Public Instruction in California, and you call this rightly a constitutional office and California's top education official. And why is it important that you note that this is a constitutional office?
Because in the state constitutional law, there is a specific duty for education. If you read Article 9, the purpose of education is to provide a moral framework for our community, for our state, and to make sure that we're taking care of the students that are in our K through 12 education system. And so having a constitutional officer that's at the top, that's specifically focused on issues pertaining to our kids' education is important. People don't even know that the office.
So you're talking about this being a constitutional office. You talk about moral issues, and this is something that matters to you because you're a family man, right?
I am. I am a father of 5 kids. My wife and I have been married 22 years. My oldest is graduating from high school this week, and my youngest is in kindergartner. So I have a K through 12 education system in my own household, and I know what it means to provide a high quality education for my kids. And it ultimately comes down to the parents, and the parents should be most involved in their kids' education, but obviously supported by those tax dollars that we have in the state and whatever other programs are out there to make sure that we're providing citizens for the 21st century economy.
Yeah, you talk about the parents. This has been a big issue for me, as you know, for a long time, is the issue of parental rights. And we saw in the Virginia elections that the issue of parental rights is the issue that's going to win elections. And you're taking a big stance for parents. And I believe that's one of the many reasons that you're going to have a great shot here June 7th. And looking forward to seeing how well you do, because I believe you're going to do well. You've got 5 things that you listed that you say, hey, once I'm elected, this is what I'm going to do. The first thing, and I want to be able to go through these 5 for the audience today, because I want people to get to know you, so that way they know who they're voting for. First thing you said is immediately suspend any curriculum framework currently in the process of being reviewed. So talk about that. What's the purpose behind that?
Well, we've seen in the past few years, as the state legislature continues to pass laws on curricula that's really not appropriate for schools, the Board of Education and Department of Education put forward curriculum framework, which is kind of like your basis for most school districts, that's just not appropriate, whether it be sex ed, ethnic studies. The most current issue that we're dealing with right now is the math curriculum framework, which every several years, the department will go back and say, hey, how can we update and fix this? What they've decided to do is replace the math curriculum framework with a whole bunch of ethnic studies and CRT, critical race theory issues, which have nothing to do with math. And in fact, 1,200 academics, math professors, and Nobel laureates have written a letter to the Superintendent of Public Instruction, the incumbent, to ask him to stop the framework immediately and start over. And I've committed to the people that have written this letter and to parents everywhere, we'll go back to the drawing board, not only with the math curriculum, but with any other framework that's just not consistent either with state law or community standards.
Yeah, I think that's something that's so needed, and people don't understand how the framework guides so much of this. When AB 329 came out, and that was the comprehensive sexuality training in the schools, when that first came out, people were talking about curriculums, and I said, we got to look at the framework. And I ended up reading the framework. It was over 700 pages long for this framework. And it's in the framework where you start finding how all the different types of books get recommended, the different extracurricular activities and resources for teachers, all of that stuff you find in the framework. So the framework is super, super important. So I appreciate that that's something you want to do. You also talk about wanting to direct staff to perform a kids first audit of the California Department of Education and its $100 million plus budget appropriations and expenditures. What is it that you're trying to accomplish in doing that?
Well, at the state level, we have 2,700 people that work for the Department of Education. It's a huge budget for most of those people. They're probably well-intended people, but have very little to do, if nothing, with local education decisions. And frankly, it's about time we step back and say, are these issues important for our kids? Is this a program or a budget expenditure that will specifically improve our kids' education? If it doesn't go directly towards those kinds of activities, then let's get rid of it. And let's then send back to the school districts whatever resources are necessary for them to improve the education of their kids within their communities. Right now, California students rank 50th out of 50 states in literacy. It's unacceptable, and more money at the state level is not going to fix anything.
Right. Well, that sounds like too much common sense for me. I'm so glad that you're talking about this issue. I think it's so important. Obviously, parental rights to me is the most important one here. And you want to talk. You talk about reclassifying an existing executive advisor within the superintendent's office as chief parent advocate and charge them with being the principal liaison on all issues and concerns brought to the office by parents. That's an awesome thing to be doing. And there's a lot of different layers to that. There's a lot of different aspects that people might not be thinking about. So just real quick, if you could, with a broad brush, what are those issues likely going to be?
Well, right now we have a Department of Education, which is supposed to just set a framework or be a basis for a lot of statewide policy, receive federal funds, maybe deal with issues as they pertain to special needs students or other things that you just can't accommodate in the local school districts. We have 944 school districts in the state. So most issues should be taken to either the local school districts or the 58 county boards of education. But a lot of people feel like the state has something to do with those issues. And so the whole point of having a chief parent advocate is to say, listen, there are a lot of things for which the state can't. Let's make sure we have our pulse on the beat of what's going on in the local districts. So when parents are frustrated at both the state and the local levels, then we actually respond accordingly with somebody who's going on and help redirect resources and insights to make sure that our local districts are back on the task of educating these kids as they should be.
Right. Yeah. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? I've been going up for years now. I've been going up to Sacramento, talking to the California Board of Education, talking to our state legislatures, and it's been a frustration because what happens is I go to school board meetings. They say, "Hey, this is Sacramento. You got to go up there. This is not our fault." So I fly up there, speak, get frustrated because they tell me, "Oh, it's a local issue. Go back home, talk to your local school board." So I do, and then they say, "No, it's Sacramento." And it's just back and forth. I feel like a ping pong ball. One of the things you said you're going to do is invite every school board trustee and district superintendent in the state to a town hall up there in Sacramento within the first month of your administration to discuss the respective constitutional authorities and responsibilities and where the state superintendent's office can appropriately defer or relinquish authority to local education officials under current law. Talk to me about that, because I think that's going to be super important, especially as we see all sorts of potential for more lockdowns or whatever the case might be. We want to get things back to being local control.
So in California, I spent 17 working in and out of the legislative memo. So I understand why it's important to make sure that we're not constantly pushing people back and forth, like you said, like a ping pong ball. We need to take some responsibility at the local level. That means saying very clearly and succinctly to officials at the school board level, the trustees and the superintendents, hey, you have constitutional and statutory authority for which I don't have or wouldn't have as a superintendent of public instruction. You need to own that. And so when you have a problem, I'm going to refer people back to you to make sure that you are addressing those issues accordingly. But I'm also going to set kind of some standards at the pass so that people don't expect to come to Sacramento, lobby the superintendent's office and feel like they're going to get more. I think the first questions I'll ask is, hey, have you raised these issues with your superintendent? Have you talked to your board members about it? If not, or if you haven't, start there first and then come back to me. And the chief parent advocate will be important. But I also want to make sure that we're all on the same page, so there's no confusion. There's a new sheriff in town, I guess you could say. And my intent will be to make sure that these superintendents and school board trustees really understand the great power and authority they have. It's probably the most important elected official you've got in your community at the school board level, and they should know and feel that weight of that responsibility.
Yeah, you talk about assembling a red team task force to recommend substantive changes to the education code through a public process. I see lots of need for change to the education code. Assembling this team, are there any specific areas that you see are the most important to get change to the ed code?
Yeah, absolutely. Curriculum is one of the main issues going through and making sure that it's actually accurate and scientific, that it's not political in nature. That would be one issue. Another one, which the legislature is debating right now, is a bill by Senator Bradford from Los Angeles. After the wake, or in the wake of these recent and very tragic shootings in Texas at the schools around the country, he wants to take away the authority for a teacher or administration to call the police when they've got an unruly student. And I think that's unfortunate, especially when we have kids' lives on the line. A lot of parents are frustrated because they send their kids to school hoping they'll be kept safe and not bullied or harassed. But most teachers, because of recent changes in state law, are unable to administer any discipline to these kids that misbehave or don't do their assignments, maybe mouth off. And so it's about time we step back and think, okay, how can we do better discipline in this realm? And the other thing too is, how big are these school districts? I mean, it's unfortunate that we have massive school districts that have billions of dollars of assets, but also have more liabilities than they do assets. So LAUSD has about 400,000 students within the system, and its unfunded liabilities are $19 billion. It's not being run well. So maybe we need to step back and think, okay, how can we get better control over massive school districts so that people can actually have a say at what's being spent and really understand how to deal with teachers. And the last one I think would be really important is the quality of teachers. Right now, we have a credentialing system that doesn't work. We get teachers that are in the system for a few short years, and then they get tenure. And then when we want to get rid of teachers, we fire the last ones in. Usually the most excited teachers are the teachers that are the freshest to the profession. There's better ways of negotiating these kinds of things and making sure that we keep quality teachers in the classroom for a long time than what our current law allows.
Yeah, you know, I read an article just a couple days ago talking about how we're seeing a lot of teachers, not just in the state of California, but across our nation, up to 55% of teachers that won't be coming back this next school year because of the problems with behavioral issues in the classroom, the fact that we've made it almost impossible for teachers to speak up about this, and that's going to be a problem for our economy. It's going to be a problem for our politics. It's going to be a problem for employment. I mean, this is going to be a problem on every level because we're going to have an issue of getting good quality teachers in there. So I'm glad that you're addressing that. Do you have support from any teacher groups because of your stance on that?
Right now, I have support from a lot of parent-teacher
Yeah.
groups, those that are not affiliated with the teachers union.
Yeah.
Right now, the teachers union in California is the most powerful political being out there. They raise about $300 million a year off of teacher union dues, and they spend that on lobbying and political causes. Their money is already being spent against me. They've raised nearly $2 million with the incumbent to make sure that I can't or to try to make sure that I can be successful in this election. But frankly, I'm concerned that most teachers are really good people, well-intended, but they're still paying to this teachers union. Dues could be better spent elsewhere. They could spend that $100 a month doing a lot better things. So I've actually advocated and helped educate teachers on their what we call Janus rights, the Supreme Court decision in 2018, which allows them to leave their union. And I help them out every step of the way.
I'm 100% with you on that. I think we need to defund the California Teachers Association. Like you said, it's the largest union we have in our state. I would say it's the most corrupt union we have in our state. They just had a conference about me just about a month and a half ago and saying how they got to stop me. And why do they have to stop me? Because I want to get good conservative people elected to school boards. You know, I have three issues that have been big for me. Is I don't want adults talking to little kids about sexual things. I don't want anybody pitting our kids against each other and based on the color of their skin. And parents are the ultimate authority in their child's life. These are not radical ideas. These should be simple, easy to understand ideas, but the California Teachers Association doesn't want that for our state. So, yeah, it's a problem. And another thing I think, and maybe you could speak to this, but even the Parent Teachers Association they've always sided with the California Teachers Association. So parents are helping to raise funds for the PTA, and then the PTA goes and works with the CTA to create anti-parent policy.
Yeah, and that's why I try to be very careful when I meet with parent groups that are incidentally teachers. It's not usually the PTAs, because you're right. They take that money that parents work really hard to get, and they spend it for things that they're not excited about. If you're a teacher within the system right now, all you have to do is realize the money that you're paying into the system is working against your interest, your morals, and your values. And so it's incumbent, if you're a person of faith at least, to step back and think, why would I continue to support an organization that hates me?
Right.
And I think most people, once they understand that, they'll want to be a better participant in the whole situation without paying money in terms of teachers' dues. But I think there are a whole bunch of great and positive opportunities for parents to get involved this year. And frankly, because this is a nonpartisan office, we have a chance in June to beat them at the pass and to actually beat the teachers unions. They're willing to spend tens of millions of dollars to defeat a candidate like me in this election. But in June, if we win 50% of the vote plus one, a simple majority, then I actually would be declared the winner in June and not have to go to runoff in November.
So let me ask you this. First of all, you've already got my vote. And like I said, I put out my voter guide. People can find that on my social media pages. So you're the person that I've endorsed. You're the person I'm voting for. But for people who haven't had that opportunity, here they are hearing from you directly. Why should they vote for you and not the other people that are running?
Well, right now, I am the only candidate with direct education experience for over 20 years. I've spent time in the legislature. I was previously a chief of staff for then State Senator John Warlock. For 5 years, I worked on budget issues surrounding education funding. The $126 billion that we're spending this year in Proposition 98 funding for schools is money that I've watched for a long time. I was also at the Department of Finance and worked as the budget analyst under the Schwarzenegger administration for those kids that were incarcerated. So I know what it means to spend money in good places, to make sure it's accounted for, that's taken care of, and that there's good stewardship over it. I've also spent time at 2 think tanks working on education policies. And in fact, that's all I do right now. I have a group called the Parent Union, for which we gather and train parents on how to advocate for their kids better. And then I'm also working on a candidate academy through another project we have to train people how to run for school boards. And my goal this year is to find a whole bunch of parents and concerned citizens who favor parents and parental control to run for office this November.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Obviously, that's something I'm working on down here with mutual friend Matthew Dobler. So I'm so grateful to have you. We're running out of time here. Grateful to have you on the show today. How can our audience follow you?
Absolutely. They can go to lancechristensen.com. Just Google it pretty quick. Or they can go to any of my social media pages. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Medium. I do a blog there every few days. Again, if you go to lancechristensen.com, you can also find out who else has endorsed me, volunteer there, and donate. Every dollar that I get towards this campaign goes to direct voter contact, and $50, $100, $500 donation can go a long way. So I appreciate the support, and I appreciate your endorsement as well.
Of course, yeah, my pleasure. Again, Lance Christensen, so happy to have you on, running for Superintendent of Public Instruction here in the state of California. If you haven't checked him out, go to his website, lancechristensen.com. Love to have you guys vote for him and connect with him on social media. So, Lance, God bless you. God bless your efforts, and I hope to see a victory on June 7th.
Thank you so much, Pastor Tim.